Okay, welcome. Exciting week, right? What's Saturday? Well, first off, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's a big day. Friday the 13th, yes. And Saturday, we celebrate Single Awareness Day, right? Right, that's what I celebrate. And then Monday is a holiday. I hope you're all going out and doing something fun before we get some snow, which we desperately need. But it's supposed to be high of 37 on Tuesday, so get out there and enjoy this beautiful weather while you can. Okay, we're excited today to have our guest speaker with us who's going to talk to us about being happy, and I think that relates really well with Valentine's Day. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Frank Clayton. He's a clinical mental health counselor with the state of Utah, and he specializes in positive psychology, or in other words, happiness. He has a thriving private practice in which he helps people not only transcend their unhappiness, but actually become happier. And he uses scientific measurements to prove it. He has been teaching an 8-week course called Happiness 101 for the past 5 years, and he's currently working on putting his findings into the Journal of Positive Psychology. He's also very active in the community, working to raise awareness on the issue of suicide in the state of Utah via published articles, trainings, webinars, talks, and various different events. So before we welcome Frank up here, I want to welcome one of our very own Snow College students, Colton Purcell. He is going to play an original piece of music for us to get us going, entitled Sleeping Beauty. So Colton, if you want to come out, and then we'll turn the time over to Frank Clayton.
I've traveled long and far to find you. I've gazed into the stars to feel close to you. This quest has brought new meaning to my life. This is the beginning. You're my sleeping beauty, I'll fight for you till the end. No dragon could get through me as long as you're my friend. Let me be your hero, I'll drive away your tears. The snow in my heart melts whenever you are near. I've been there and back again. I found it's you I want. There's so much I could say to you about this road I'm on. So take my hand, let's take a chance. There's nothing we can lose. There's nothing we can lose. 'Cause you're my sleeping beauty, I'll fight for you till the end. No dragon could get through me as long as you're my friend. Let me be your hero, I'll drive away your tears. The snow in my heart melts whenever you are near.
So now, how can we turn that into a happy moment? Okay. So one of the reasons that I'm very, very passionate about teaching Happiness 101 and bringing happiness to the community, the underpinnings of that is actually something very negative. As Celia had mentioned, I'm very, very passionate on the subject of suicide. Now, Utah is the 4th highest consumer of antidepressants in the United States, and we are still in the top 10 for the rate of suicide. And if you look at the map about where these suicides are occurring, and you're looking at it based on the percentage of where these people are taking their life, you're sitting in the middle of it. It's in rural Utah. And there is unfortunately, there's something called the suicide belt that goes all along the western side of the Rocky Mountains. And so Utah is essentially the buckle of the suicide belt. And of the places that need the help the most is rural Utah. So as I said, I've been teaching the class for almost 6 years now. This upcoming semester, we're going to try something a little bit different, and this pertains specifically to you, is that we're going to start what we call a proxy program, where we're going to have proxy students. So if you want to take Happiness 101 with all of these goodies that are in here and have 16 hours worth of instruction for free, make sure that you email me and ask about the proxy program. We're going to, as I said, we're going to get that going in the next semester, which will probably be about the May time frame. And I also happen to believe that, well, I don't have to believe it because it's scientifically proven, which is one of the things that I love about what I'm doing, is that it isn't just woo-woo, pie in the sky kind of stuff. This is actually very serious business. I happen to think that happiness can be a matter of life or death. If I'm out here teaching people about happiness and bringing about hope, then not only might they not take their lives, but it's been scientifically proven that when we become happier, there's this ripple effect that actually they found that it has exactly the same pattern as a virus. Remember, like everybody's freaked out about the Ebola virus, right? So the virus, so to speak, of happiness. So if I infect, so to speak, if I infect you, potentially, and scientifically they were able to prove this, that it touches potentially up to 1,000 people. So when I don't think that, some people have said, oh, being happier, that's a selfish thing. I happen to think you're doing a community service. If you yourself become happier and you're infecting up to 1,000 people, I think that's really great. So I only have a limited amount of time. As I said, I've got so much in my head that I just wish it was like the Matrix and I could just jack you in and you just take it all in and, okay, now I know what to do to be happier. But so I am going to give you some resources. Please email me. If you're hungry for this stuff, I want to help you. I want to give you what you need. One of the things that the text that we use in the class is called The How of Happiness by an author named Sonia Lyubomirsky. And that's actually on the test. If you want to be a positive psychologist, you have to be able to spell Lyubomirsky correctly. So what I'm going to be talking to you today in this very brief time is very simple. I'm going to talk to you about what does not make you happy and also why. And I'm going to talk about what will make you happy. And the thing that I love about the lists that I'm going to give you is, again, that they're all scientifically backed up. So I want to jump right in with, there's Sonia's book. You'll notice there's a pie on the front. I'm going to get back to that. So I want to jump right in with Aunt Sonia talks about the myths of happiness. So the first one is what she calls Shangri-La. It's this belief, this myth that if we just were somewhere else, if magically, like you might go, oh, I live in rural Utah. Like, what is there to do? I can't be happy out here. There's nothing going on. I hear that a lot. And so you might think, oh, I can't be happy where I am. I need to be moved here or moved there. They actually had a study between people that lived in Southern California and people that lived in Minnesota. And they asked both groups of people, who do you think is happier? And both groups of people said, yeah, we think Southern California is sunny skies, beaches, and all that. And they found that the level of happiness between the two groups was almost exactly the same. So if you think that moving off to somewhere else is what's going to make you happier, it doesn't work. So I'm of the mind, and I'm going to tell you why before this is all over. So I'm of the mind that make the decision to start being happier where you are and in the place that you are in your life right now. I like this one. Do you love the pictures? Perfect. So this is the myth of either you're born with it or you're not. Now, if you subscribe to this belief, then it sucks all of the motivation out of you to try to be happier. If you just believe some people are born with it, some people aren't, and you see these, they're like magical unicorns that you run across every once in a while, and you're like, oh, there's one of those happy people. Oh, wait, I want some of that. Oh, wait, I wasn't born with it. And so if you believe this, then you're not going to try to be any happier. And there is a little bit of truth to this, which I'm actually going to come back to in a minute. But I hope that you'll examine that, if that happens to be your belief. This next one is called the myth of circumstances. And even as much as I know, as you know, I'm a fully licensed therapist and I teach happiness, as much as all of that is true, I still fall into this trap sometimes. I still catch myself, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if. And this doesn't work either. So I like the little slideshow where, so a lot of times we think that it's going to be money, fame, having a baby. We were talking about Valentine's Day, right? So, oh, if I just found Prince or Princess Charming, then I would be happy. What did Walt Disney say? He said, and then they lived happily ever after, right? And I know that Walt had nothing but good intentions, but it turns out that the science has proven to us that happily ever after lasts approximately 2 years. It's the longest lasting happiness boost, I'll give it that, but if you think that it is what's going to be the end-all, be-all that's going to make you happy, it just doesn't really work that way. If you were an unhappy person before you met that person, and you start off this fairy tale life, if you were unhappy before, in about 2 years they figure that you're going to return to your baseline. So you notice that a couple of these about the money and the fame, those fall under extrinsic goals. And the thing about extrinsic goals is that you can have fame, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that if you have fame, you won't necessarily be happy, but it's more the other way around. Like, if you're chasing happiness by being famous or having power or wealth or beauty, if you're chasing after it and you think that that's going to be the end-all, be-all of what's going to make you happy, it doesn't work that way. And again, I'll explain exactly why it doesn't work. We are going to have a little Q&A at the end, so I'm sure that as I'm saying some of these things, like, especially like you ask the average American, what is it that will make you happy? And a lot of people say, well, what did they say? What is it that you think that most Americans would say, if you want to be happy, you just what? Right, hit the lottery, exactly. And there's a book out called The Midas Curse, and they found that when people win the lottery, they follow their story over the course of a year, and they find, were they happy in that moment? Absolutely. They were completely ecstatic. But that's what, in positive psychology, it's what we call a happiness boost. It is not what will make you lastingly happier. So, this is, in a way, we're kind of describing the American dream, right? And some of the people that I work with that are the most desperate, really, they're standing right in the middle of the American dream on their well-manicured lawn, and the white picket fence, and they got the dog house, and they got their, house in the suburbs, and they're suburban, and they got the 2.5 kids inside, and, okay, it's Utah, I know, 5.5 kids at least, I know. But, so they're standing right in the middle of Americana, and they did everything right. They followed the rules, and if you look at any advertisement, if you follow the breadcrumb trail long enough, they're always selling happiness, even if it's the relief from pain. Preparation H. Oh, if you buy our product, then you won't be in so much pain, and then you'll be happier. So this is really important concept. And the reason that it doesn't work, if you want to impress your friends with something you learned in the talk today, get your pen ready. So the answer to the issue as to why it doesn't work is called hedonic adaptation, which is just a really fancy college way of saying we get used to it. We get used to these things. No matter how much we think, oh, this is going to be the end-all, be-all thing, and then I will finally be happy, it just doesn't work out that way. Like we said, even with the lottery. So here's how it works. You see that flat line, that's what we would consider like our normal state. And then something really big happens, we get that big promotion, or we win the lottery, or we find Mr. or Mrs. Right. And so we experience this great surge in our happiness. And then we think, oh, here I am, I've arrived, I'm finally going to be happy. And then it goes down, down, slowly down, until we go back to our baseline. Now, the good news about this is that it also works the other way. That big bad event that you've been afraid of your whole life and said, oh my gosh, I could handle a lot of things, except I just couldn't handle it if, and you fill in the blank. You can. We are a lot more resilient than what we think that we are. Now, there is a couple of caveats to this. Now, I'm not saying that you stay down in the toilet forever. It's just that, like, when you come back up, you don't quite make it back up to what was your previous baseline. And that's two things. One is death of a child, and the other one for men is if they permanently lose their job. Because a lot of men identify themselves, their identity is wrapped up in their okayness, can be wrapped up in their profession. So that's the two caveats to that. But other than that, we go up, we experience a happiness boost, we slowly come back to our normal state. We go down, but we think, oh, I'm going to die, that's the end, I can't make it. And like I said, we're a lot more resilient than what we think that we are. So, is this implying that we have a happiness set point, kind of like a thermostat, that, well, why does it matter? How is it that I can be happier? Even if I won the lottery, Frank, you're saying that no matter what happens to me, I'm going to still end up returning back to my baseline. So it does work that way, and it doesn't work that way. So on the cover of Aunt Sonia's book, you see this pie. So let's carve the pie up. You'll notice that there's 50%, 10%, and 40%. So I turned it over on its side so I could actually fit a little bit of text into it. And so remember when I talked about the myth of happiness, either you're born with it or you're not? So that is literally about halfway true. So they found that especially through twin studies, they found that our genetics plays a role in our happiness to the tune of about 50%. So you look to your family. Now, if you are predisposed to depression, like I am, like if you knew the whole story and how I've been depressed and I was on antidepressants, I was suicidal at one point, all of my extended family is extremely depressed. So if you think, oh, well, I'm already 50% behind the 8 ball, I can't be happier, you're just flat out wrong. Because if I can do it, that's one of the reasons I'm up here teaching this, because if it wasn't that way, this would be a bad joke and you guys all boo me off the stage, and you should. But I'm here to help you learn how to be happier. Now, this next little stat is one of the most important reasons that I teach this class. It goes back to the comment about the American dream. We just think, if I just get that promotion, if I have a baby, if I get married, if I finally retire, whatever it is, winning the lottery, whatever that stuff, all of that stuff falls under the umbrella of life circumstances. And when it comes to your overall happiness, that stuff calls for 10%. 10% of your overall happiness. These things that we hang our hat on and we think it's going to finally do it for us is practically a footnote. It's tiny. And yet we put so much stock into this. So this magical 40%, wow, 50% is genetic, 10% is the stuff I've been hanging my hopes on. What is this magical 40%? This is one of the most important things that I'm going to say today, and I hope that you'll latch onto it with both hands. 40% is what we choose to do, our voluntary, controlled activities. What is it that we choose to do? Now, this is, when I say this, I'm talking about consciously or unconsciously. I come to a red light. Why do we do that? Was that in the driver's manual? I don't remember seeing that. Why is it that we come to a red light? That's a complaint. Do you know the average person complains 70 times a day? And the reason that you don't remember complaining yesterday or the day before that, you don't remember complaining 70 times in a day, is because a lot of times we're not even thinking about it. We're doing it mindlessly. And while we're on the subject of choice, it begs the question, and this is something that I would like you to think about, because this is something that I teach in the class, is something that is pivotal. That in order for you to make these choices, you have to get crystal clear about what it is that you have control of. Crystal clear. Like if ultimately what it is that you want to be happy, do you have control of that? Do you have control of your emotions? What do you as a human being, what is it that you have control over? Because the people that get labeled as control freaks, they're not. They're not in control. They're trying to get control over the things that they don't actually have control of. That's why they're labeled control freaks. People that are truly grasp what it is that they're in control of, they never get accused of that. So I want you to see, again, 50% genetics, 10% is life circumstances, 40% is our choice. Now let's go back to our thermometer and the idea of a thermostat. So in a real thermostat, if it goes up a couple of degrees, the AC kicks on. If it goes down a couple of degrees, then the heater kicks on. But this is not really the way that it works. Remember, in the pie, 40% of our happiness is our choice. So it's much more like this, yes, maybe there is a thermometer of sorts, that's our genetics, which the really exciting thing is that they're doing more and more research, and they're finding that even if your genetics are predisposed toward depression, that there are actually things that you can do, there are choices that you can make, and activities that you can do to transcend your genetics. You do not have to be a slave to your genetics, but you have to know what to do. You have to put the right leverage in the right place to be able to get the results that it is that you ultimately want. So, again, we want to make the most of these choices. I like what the Dalai Lama said. He wrote a book called The Art of Happiness, and I'm not nearly as cool as the Dalai Lama. But what he said was essentially, you figure out the things that make you happy, and you do more of that. And you figure out the things that make you less happy, and you do less of that. That is the way of happiness. And it's a very, very simple concept, and it's one of those things that can take a lifetime to master. I've written 15 articles now for KSL. If you go on KSL and just put my name in, there's a whole bunch of articles. And one of them is, and I would highly suggest this, is called The 8 Steps of Happiness. Just becoming mindful, figuring out what it is that makes you happy and unhappy, do a little bit of brainstorming, and try doing something different. When I come to that red light, instead of, let's do a really quick brainstorming. How could you spend that 30 seconds at a light and actually enjoy it? Kissing your girlfriend. I like it. What else can you do? Can we bring the house lights up a little bit? What else can you do at a light? Sing to the radio. Beautiful. What else? What? Did I hear somebody say dance? I guess you could dance in your seat. Do what? Chinese fire drill. I like that. That's the first time I've heard that one. So if you're mindful about it and you're paying attention, there are a ton of things that you could do at a light to have a different experience. So we have this bias about what it is that's going to make us happier. You know, like for instance, if I look back on my life and I said, oh man, I really want to be happier. I want to be happier. I want to be happier so bad. Okay, I'm going to think about the best time I've had in my life. What's the best time? The best time was when I went on that cruise. I was so happy on that cruise. All my worries were left behind. So I know I'm going to quit my whole life and live on a cruise ship. It doesn't work that way. So we have this bias in our head about that it's supposed to be the big things. The big things we remember better, so we give it more weight. But when it comes to your happiness, it isn't about the big things, it's about the little things. It's about the little things that you do every day. It's about that complaining. Or do you have an attitude of gratitude where when I was driving down here, I threaded right between two deer. They were running across the road, and I could have been all freaked out, but my first response was like, wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so glad that I didn't hit a deer. So your attitude about something is one of those things that's within your sphere of control. And how do you do about that? Do you complain about everything, or do you choose to look more on the bright side? What are your habits? What are the things that you're not even really thinking about? And are they conducive to you being happier? So this thing is happiness boost versus habits. So Sonia Lyubomirsky, she's always talking about like, what are your habits? Look at your habits. What is it that you're doing? Wake up, be mindful. Ask yourself, are these things conducive to my happiness? So here is the list from Sonia Lyubomirsky's. I told you you're going to need that pen. So if you don't have it out and you're filming, where is it? Where is it? So, and I can't say enough about this book. She actually has a test in the book that will help you figure out which happiness activities are most in alignment with your personal happiness. So by the time people are done with Happiness 101, they've made a plan. It isn't just, oh, I'm going to spoon feed you and tell you what's going to make you happy. No, you're going to figure out what's going to make you happy and go from there. So this is a really great list. These are all scientifically proven to improve our happiness. The other one is by a woman named Barbara Fredrickson. She has a book called Positivity. There is some overlap between the two lists, but there also have some things in there that are independent. So I wanted to mention really quick before I completely run out of time, because I had till 1:20, was it? Okay. I mentioned before extrinsic goals. I wanted to give a little credence to intrinsic goals. They found that there's a lot more bang for the buck about doing intrinsic goals. The thing that's interesting is the extrinsic goals, usually like if we're we want to have a lot of money, or we want to have a lot of power, or we want to have a lot of beauty, that is contingent on other people saying, wow, you're the bomb, or wow, you're so beautiful, or you're so amazing, or whatever. So intrinsic goals are not about that. They're something that you're just doing within yourself. I'm standing here in front of you because I want to be, because I like it, because I like spreading the word about happiness. And so, people keep asking me, why are you doing Happiness 101 for free? And I'm like, I'm not doing it for free. I get paid in what I call light bulb moments. When I see tears come into people's eyes when they realize that their life just changed, you can't put a price tag on that. So that's my way of volunteering. I do the happiness socials. I'm doing another one this Saturday for Valentine's Day. So volunteering, that makes me feel really good. I feel like I'm giving to my community, making the world a better place. So volunteering, personal development of really any kind, just trying to make yourself a better person, putting yourself out there. And social connections, which is absolutely huge. That's one of the reasons why I do the happiness social every month. And I just came up with this new idea, and I just started it like 2 days ago. I think there's like 50 people that have already signed up for it. On my Facebook page, or not my Facebook page, but I created a group on Facebook called Positive Friends Utah. So the only thing about that is that if you want to find other people who are positive that you want to be friends with and extend your social network, this is the place to do it. So you just sign up for it. And I specifically you guys actually inspired this, because I want especially people in the rural areas, because they're like, oh, we don't have anybody to connect to. We don't know where to find positive people. Well, now you do. So go on there and just sign up for it and introduce yourself. Say where you're at, and, I'm looking for a positive friend, or whatever it would be helpful to you. I have a few resources for you. Get your pen out. I don't know if you guys know it, but there's already a class. Can you guys bring up the house lights for a second? There is already a class going on right here at Snow College, and it's called Happy Essentials, and it's run by Brooke. She's running my video camera at the same time. So she's Brooke Dotson. So you already actually, can you stand up for me just for a second? Just give her a hand. So you already have that resource right here in your backyard, but I recognize that there may not be as many resources available to you locally as there might be, say, in Salt Lake. So this edx.org, they have, it's like a 9-week class that's put out by Berkeley. You can go on there and take it, and it's free. It's absolutely free, and you can take it whenever you want. You can watch the videos whenever you want. It's completely self-paced. You can't really go wrong. I already mentioned the proxy student and the Positive Friends Utah. 2 books, really big ones that I would recommend is The How of Happiness by Sonia Lubomirski and The Happiness Advantage by a guy named Sean Aker. So I wanted to give you a little bit of time to do some questions and answers. And I put my email up here again so that you can, if you write any one thing down and you want to be happier, make that it, because I want you to be able to reach me. So what questions do you have about happiness? You guys know everything there is to know now, right? What questions do you have? Yes?
Would you consider being happy an ethical obligation? Why or why not?
Would I consider it an ethical obligation? I consider it to be kind of a community obligation. I don't think anybody's going to come down on me and say, you should be happy or you're breaking your ethics. But I do believe that we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the people that we love to be happier, yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Oh, come on. I love answering questions. Yes?
What would you say is the difference between trying to find happiness and trying to find joy in life?
Well, joy is, I think that happiness is kind of more of a hum, and then I think of joy as kind of like accents in those moments. Pretty straightforward. I don't have much more about that than that. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes?
You're talking about like your baseline of that happens to you eventually except for losing a child or losing a job.
Uh-huh.
Is that, I mean, that's just, you can't improve that. You can't get back there and be happier. Or is that just like, happens to you and that's up to your person now?
You mean like even if the person did, like if they lost a child?
Right, and they worked really hard to try and become happier.
Right, because like once you learn about the stuff about like how it all works and you're putting the right amount of leverage in the right place, because that's a lot of what we're doing is, especially as Americans, is it's not that we're not putting in effort, we're putting in a lot of effort, but we're putting in the effort in an area that doesn't really pay off nearly as well as we would hope that it does. So if you think of that 40%, yeah, it doesn't mean that I would say if they're not taking the class or they're not going to therapy or doing something to deal with that and raise their level of happiness, then yes, if everything else stays the same, then they'll probably come close to their baseline, but they won't quite go back all the way to it. Absolutely. I mean, exercise is one of the, and I'll be the first one to say, I hate exercise. I don't like it at all. But, and I'm working on that because, like, I love video games. So what my evil little plan is to marry my love of video games with exercise so that it doesn't seem like work. Or I'm working to find, like, because when I was a kid in Southern California, I would ride my bike about 3 miles over all these hills to the beach. I'd body surf, lay out and tan, body surf, lay out and tan, leave just enough energy to bike home. And never in my mind did I ever say exercise in my head. So I'm looking for a new way to exercise that's really fun. Ultimate Frisbee sounds really fun. Did I answer your question? Okay, other questions? She's like, I'm here.
Well, you said that when you reach the peak of happiness, it slowly goes back to the baseline. How do you stay happy? Is it possible to stay up?
Yeah, there's a lot of techniques, and Sonia talks about this in the book, about that. So hedonic adaptation is kind of the enemy of happiness because, whatever it is, even when we take a bite of like our favorite food, like let's say cheesecake, we'll go with that. So you take that first bite, and then they showed that our level of enjoyment of the second bite is about half of what it was for the first bite, and then it continues to go down and down and down. I always thought like the happiness diet, like just be mindful, which is one of the ways that you can thwart hedonic adaptation, is to just be mindful, right? So that's one of the many answers to it, is to be mindful. So if you're really like you hit the lottery, and so when you wake up in the morning, you'd say, okay, I hit the lottery. Like, how can I really appreciate? What are all the things that I could appreciate about the fact that I won the lottery? How can I be grateful? So rather than, because that's part of hedonic happiness or hedonic adaptation, is that we just start taking it for granted. Like in Salt Lake, I have this most amazing view. I live up on the East Bench. I have this amazing view of the entire valley. Usually when I sit at my dining room table, I'm sitting with my back to the view, just because it's the most comfortable chair and blah, blah, blah. It's like I don't even notice it most of the time anymore. So hedonic adaptation, but when friends come over, they're like, oh, your view is amazing. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. It's great, isn't it? So yeah, being mindful is a really big piece of that, and and having gratitude. Gratitude is amazing. One of the things that I teach, I'm out of time. Oh, shucks. Okay, well, I'm going to be around for a minute. If you want to ask me anything on the sly, I'll be here. But thank you so much. Thank you again to Brooke and to Celia. So thanks for having me.